too, Candy. One thing I found really interesting about Nancy's case is the new Google search. They're saying that when they look into Google searches, which is so clever, they've looked on Google how many times Nancy's address has been searched. And there was once in June of last year, her address was searched, which they're excluding. But on the January 11th of this year, her address was Googled. And if you remember, January the 11th is the day they were looking for footage from. So that, to me, seems like an interesting lead, right? So it seems like that may be something worth looking up. It's the only lead I've seen so far that I think is credible. TMZ said they had another note, a ransom note, but that doesn't seem to be able to be ruled in or out. I don't trust TMZ. Let's have a look. Nancy Guthrie. How a pacemaker may help locate her even though it's not a GPS chip. The Bluetooth technology in Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker may help law enforcement locate her. The director of electric physiology from Northwell Health, professor of cardiology, said the Bluetooth tech communication information may help them trace it. But surely it would have to, even though it's disconnected from an app, it will still be functioning. It may be traceable. As the search continues, law enforcement has turned to the pacemaker implanted in the heart of the 84-year-old to find her. Now, we knew they used the signal sniffer, which the signal sniffer seemed to be a bit ridiculous because you have to be really low down and really close to the pacemaker to find her. So them doing that on a helicopter, you would have to almost be like right on the address. This is what I've never seen, Kelly. I did a video today and I just kind of said, here's the updates. There is no updates. Like, we're making these, thank you, Kirsten, thank you, Ducky. We're making these big sweeping statements like, oh, Mexican cartel, maybe. There's no reason for saying it. It just all seems to be very, like, all these headlines that actually amount to nothing because they've got nothing else to say. I'm trying to see what else has come up. God, Trump's waiting with the... Again. He said, boy, this is so crazy. It's really bad. I didn't like it when they were talking about going after the pacemaker. You know, even when they started going after it, they're coming and reporting it. So in fact, they could do it that way. The person would say, well, I'm not going to let this happen, right? So they're going to remove the pacemaker. He's right, though, isn't he? Why would you let it go into week 3 of her being missing and then go, we're going to try and get a Bluetooth connection from the pacemaker. Now you're going to remove the pacemaker, maybe. And even if you've killed her body, you may now try and cut out her heart. I know it sounds awful, but that may be true. But this is like Trump the other day said, if we find the people that kidnapped her, we're going to put them to death. Well, now anyone who had her alive, who may at some point you may have had a chance to get her back, may now kill her. He's threatened the death penalty if Nancy is found dead, or even if they don't give her back, he will be the most severe consequences. Well, you don't need to say nothing really. I keep hoping, and I spoke to Kirsty about it the other day when we were live, I said, I keep hoping that eventually we will find out they've been doing loads behind the scenes. So the newest note apparently is graphic in its descriptions. The note is described as even more chilling graphic than the initial ransom note, which demanded $6 million. I honestly think that we can that she was kidnapped for money, right? Everything is financial. Her daughter is a famous person, got a multi-million contract on American TV. We can say that it was for money. However, something went wrong very quickly. And I believe in most kidnapping cases, you would take a victim from a property and you would leave behind a note that said, we're going to be in contact, do not contact authorities or we'll kill your mother. That wasn't done because at some point when they took Nancy from the home or tried to take her from her bedroom that night when she's 84, blood was left behind, which was from the victim. Now, the FBI seem to think the blood is from either the nose or mouth area because of the donut shapes of the blood. You can tell it's mixed with oxygen. Either it was aspirated out of the mouth or nose. So that tells you she had some kind of injury. I don't know if they forgot to leave that note behind. From the CCTV of the man trying to cover up the camera with weeds and plants and shit, I would say they're not very smart. So something went wrong from the very beginning. I believe that sometime the next evening, they assumed they would contact Nancy's family and ask for money. However, by then the church friends had already started panicking and already called authorities. Now, once you get the authorities involved and one of their children is famous, she was on every True Crime Live going. She was on Talk Nation. She was on News Nation. She was on every type of American program. Now you're fucked. But then you have two options. The first would have been very quickly to leave Nancy on the side of the road somewhere blindfolded so she didn't know who took her and get the hell out of Dodge, hoping that you would never be traced. And the other is to try and make contact that you know the FBI are going to trace. You can't phone them because they will track it. You can't send an email, they'll track it. You can't send a carrier pigeon. This is real life. So at that point, you can't even make contact to retrieve the funds. In my opinion, and this is just other cases I've covered, and obviously the knowledge I have, I believe that it was someone close to Nancy that was involved in the initial plan. It was a cash grab, and they kind of thought that they would be able to control the situation better and extract money from Savannah, from her brother, from maybe the sister if she's not involved. And they thought quite quickly Nancy would be handed back, no one would be hurt, and they would get money. But I think it spiralled very quickly. And we know all the time, right, as soon as you've got the FBI involved, you've got the county sheriff involved, the whole media are looking, there's media everywhere. How do you just nip back in and put her back where she came from? How do you send a ransom note? Even if you're involved in the original story, say like Annie and her husband, which I would be looking towards personally myself. I'm not going to say I'll say they're persons of interest, not suspects, but you can't get money, you can't extract it from the situation without them tracing it. You know, you also know that now FBI are involved, they're looking into your finances, your background, your credit checks and all that. Like, you're pretty much fucked at this point. And all we can hope is if Nancy is related to the people who have engineered the taking, because obviously she's not related to the actual people that extracted her from the scene, we have to hope they love her enough to risk getting in trouble. And they're not so scared of getting in trouble that she's collateral damage. I do question, because I love my mum, and not for love nor money could you get me to get a man in a black mask, fully covered head to toe, to walk into her home and kidnap her, or maybe even get her to have a heart attack out of fear, just so I could get bread. Like, it just wouldn't make sense for me to do it. My mum is the last person, I'm going to be honest. So it's got to be someone who, you know, maybe is the least favoured child, someone who has some resentment, someone who feels like maybe some other children are favoured, or maybe other people have had more opportunities. There has to be that thing, a coldness towards kind of like, because you know it's a risk, right? If you have an 84-year-old woman, man, someone who's particularly vulnerable or of that age, and they wake up to a man fully dressed like a kidnapper, black mask, black gloves, there is definitely a chance that she's going to have a stroke, a heart attack, that something's going to go very wrong. If we look at FBI statistics, the likelihood of you being kidnapped by a stranger is less than 5%. So even if we're looking at it statistically, because we don't have a lot of information, statistically, not only is it less than 5%, but over 8% of the time you're going to be dead within the first 72 hours. The huge amount of people, the most will be dead within the first 8. So, and I say that, and I caution that by saying we don't have a lot of data involved in pensioner kidnappings. This is really out of the norm. So I can only say that in kidnappings in general and adult kidnappings, we don't tend to see people over a certain age kidnapped, because it sounds really horrible, but humans have a worth, right, in kidnapping situations. So if you want to extract money, you are going to pick someone who is the most worth the money and the lowest risk. So to me, Nancy is a very high risk person to take, and out of the family, you'd better to take Savannah's husband, or Savannah's children, if you weren't connected to the case. They have the most money. Savannah's husband's more likely to put up more money for his wife than his mother-in-law. But it's just facts. Also, someone of Savannah's age is much easier to move around than someone of her mum's age. Her children are definitely going to get a good response from her own husband. So even if you were looking to weigh it up, you know, most people are going to go, I'm not taking the grandma. What if she dies on the job? So one of the things that, yeah, someone, Kirsty, that you would think like a child or someone vulnerable, a female, like someone who's not Nancy really, like, and everyone's saying the same, like people who have been in police forces before, people who've been in tactical roles, you know, kind of like hostage negotiation, people who from the FBI who are mainly involved in kidnappers are saying this is not the victim. This makes no sense. As a victim profile, she does not make sense. How many times I probably can Google, and I have Googled, and I found like 2 or 3 specific cases in America where pensioners have been taken, especially when there's other viable people that can be taken. And they tend to be in situations where it's kind of like someone's gone to a robbery and someone's woke up and they're like, okay, we're going to take this person while we get away. It's not really for financial, it's like they've already got themselves involved in a situation. I don't know if I see a good outcome here. It's been too long. And while I hope they're doing more behind the scenes, every step that the police or the FBI are taking in this case is something that should be done way before it's been done.